welcome everybody to another expert chat with your friends here at Gold Star. Obviously, it's a time when we're all parsing through a lot of complex issues in our world and in our industry of live entertainment. And our goal has been to be able to bring an expert on a topic that's super relevant right now to you to talk through an issue, answer your questions, and lend some perspective. And we're really fortunate today to have Sibi Thomas with us. Sibi, thank you, by the way, for joining us.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you for having me.
It's our pleasure. Sibi is a partner in the nonprofit government and healthcare group at Marks Paneth LLP, which is an accounting firm based in New York, but serving the whole world, presumably, isn't it? I assume that you do the whole world?
We do some international, regional.
You could serve the whole world if you so chose. Sibi has over a decade of accounting, auditing, tax, and consulting experience in the nonprofit industry. And while it's true that not everybody who's necessarily joining us today or uses Gold Star is in the live entertainment businesses in the nonprofit industry, many are, and I think a lot of what we're going to talk about today would apply if you're not a nonprofit, and others will be specifically to that. But Sibi serves on the AICPA's Not-for-Profit Entities Expert Panel and has been recognized by the CPA Practice Advisor as a 40 under 40 honoree for his leadership in the accounting profession. That's awesome. Adjunct faculty of not-for-profit accounting at NYU, and says your free time is mostly spent with the family and the kids, which is very understandable. And you just have a lot to share with us. And Marks Paneth has a dedicated theater, media, and entertainment division that does a lot of work in sectors that are going to be very familiar to many of the people that are on with us today. So, Sibi, welcome. First of all, thank you again for being part of this. And we're here today to talk about possibly a range of issues, but I think we're focused really on the CARES Act and maybe even more so on the PPP, the Payment Protection Program. So maybe the best way to start is for you to give us an overview of the Act and provisions that you think are relevant as providing relief to small businesses, and just go from there.
Yeah. Thank you, Jim. Like most of you, I'm also staying at home, working from my office. So if you hear any background noise, if my kids are screaming, just bear with me. I do have my office, closed, but my daughter does like to just come in without any notice. So
background noise is just part of life now. We've all come to accept it, I think.
Yes. So the CARES Act, which is the Coronavirus Aid, Relief and Economic Security Act, it was signed into law on March 27. I'm sorry. So it is that we all heard about it. It's a 2.2 trillion stimulus bill, to provide emergency relief. It's to individuals, families, businesses, which includes small businesses. They are a big part of that stimulus package, and also nonprofits that are experiencing hardship because of COVID-19. The act itself is over 850 pages. I don't think most of that is not really relevant in our discussion. What I'm going to focus on is really the two major provisions in the CARES Act that small businesses, nonprofits that can take advantage right away. But the first one, the most popular one, is the Paycheck Protection Program, which is, we call it the PPP or the Triple P program. It's a $349 billion in forgivable loans to small businesses to pay their employees, primarily to pay their employees during this COVID crisis. The loan proceeds, if you're eligible and if you get the loan, can be used to cover payroll, mortgage interest, rent, utilities for an 8-week period once you receive the loan. The good news is it is working, because one of my clients, actually, they are probably the first ones, they received the money last Saturday. And they were one of the first ones to apply. The application opened up on April 3rd, and they applied. They actually have money in the bank on Saturday, so which was great to see the end result of all the work they had to prepare and apply for this. So the Paycheck Protection Program is the biggest and the most attractive provision for small businesses. The second one is the Emergency Economic Injury Disaster Loans, which is, we call it the EIDL loans. They are not forgivable. They are a low interest loan that you can get directly from SBA. You can finance up to 30 years. It's a low interest loan, around 2.7% for nonprofits. The only way to find out if you are eligible for EIDL loan is the best way is to go ahead and apply for it. The application process, I believe it takes almost 2 hours. It is directly from SBA's website. So you just go to the SBA's website, search for EIDL loans, and just start the application. The application process is designed in a way that if you're not eligible, it's going to kick you out during the process. And that's when you know it's not for you. But again, remember, that is not a forgivable loan. And you cannot, if you go with the paycheck protection, you cannot service the same expenses, or you cannot pay the same expenses with the two different loans. You got to pick one or the other to pay for those expenses.
So just to kind of call attention to the difference there. So there's the PPP, which was part of the coronavirus stimulus package. That loan is forgivable provided you use it for salaries, rent, mortgage interest, that kind of thing. The EIDL loan was a pre-existing program, was it not, from the SBA?
That is correct.
So that's one that under other, hurricanes or other kinds of things that could come along, existed before. That one still exists, and some are eligible. We can get into eligibility maybe in a minute, but that one is not forgivable. It's a debt that you will have to pay back regardless of how you spend it.
That's correct. And also for EIDL loans, you have to have some collateral, some level of credit, and the amount is decided by SBA based on the collateral and the credit you have. So keep that in mind. There's two other things I want to mention as a major provision, or at least the top four, I call it, other than the paycheck, the EIDL, and two more. One is an employee retention credit. But once you go for the PPP program, you cannot get the employee retention credit. And the employee retention credit, the calculation is a little bit complex. So I say that you talk to your accountants if you go for it. But remember, your first option is the PPP. And if you don't get the PPP, then you can go for this credit. And the last
credit, or is this an actual is this a loan or a tax credit, or what is the employee retention credit?
It is a tax credit up to 50% of the employee's compensation, and if you keep them employed. And the calculation, as I said, is not straightforward. You will need an accountant to figure out how much you're going to save on the employee retention credit. So I say, if you don't get the PPP, then talk to your accountants to see if you can get the employee retention.
Now, the problem with that one is that it's not cash in hand, really. It's sort of on the back end of taxes that you've paid would be reimbursed to you or not collected.
That's correct. Yeah, it is not new monies coming in. It is almost like a reduction or a credit to your expenses. There is another one out there, which is the payroll tax deferral that everybody can take advantage. What you do is you don't pay the payroll tax for the remainder of 2020, the employer portion of the payroll tax. Mm-hmm. And you can pay those amounts in two installments, one 12/31/21 and 12/31/22. So if you think about it, it's an interest-free loan for the rest of the year for the payroll taxes you pay on behalf of your employees. So these are the four items I can think of on top that small businesses and nonprofits can take advantage right away. And as I said, I think we should talk more about the PPP.
Yeah. I think the question that a lot of people are asking is, what makes somebody eligible or not eligible for the PPP? Because that is the most attractive of these, in the sense that, these are the expenses that most people have. They're going to spend the money, and so it almost becomes a grant or a money that you just get as a result of successfully applying. So can you walk us through the eligibility boundaries for that?
Sure. So it's really for small businesses with fewer than 500 employees. So I'm not going to go into the details, but I think for our audience, most of them are small businesses or nonprofits under 500 employees. Mm-hmm. For nonprofits, you have to be either a 501c3 organization or a 501c19 veterans organization. All other sections are not eligible for Triple P program, but they may be eligible for the EIDL program, EIDL, that I mentioned before. So if you're a 501c3 or 501c19 or a small business with fewer than 500 employees, you're also eligible if you're an individual who operates a sole proprietorship. So keep that in mind. And also for independent contractors. If you're an independent contractor, you get 1099s, you're eligible to apply for this as well. And certain type of self-employed individuals, so they actually issued a clarification on that yesterday, and that's also, again, a little bit complicated if you have a partnership and so forth.
Yeah.
Certain type of self-employed individuals are eligible, but the majority of the application is, again, small businesses, nonprofits under 500 employees, and sole proprietors and independent contractors.
Actually, Sibi, a couple of questions came in that are directly relevant to what you were just asking about. Caroline asks, for an LLC without employees, where presumably the owner of the LLC takes draws, not payroll, how do you deal with the payroll questions? How do you deal with, I guess, the issue of how big is the payroll? If it's a draw-based system rather than a payroll-based system?
So it looks to me like a sole proprietor type business here. So for a sole proprietor, you can take, and we will talk about how to calculate the loan amount and how much you can borrow. You can borrow up to $100,000 for that one employee. In this case, there's one sole proprietor for the loan amounts. If that person draws over $100,000, that amount is not eligible, but up to $100,000 is eligible for that draw. And
then somewhat similar question, John asks, you represent the nonprofit with one employee. There's nothing that, as long as they're a 501c3 or 501c19, and they're under 500, it seems like they're perfectly eligible.
Yeah, that sounds like they are. Yeah, they have no limitation. If you have one employee, that's the amount that you can borrow is limited to, the compensation for that one employee. But yes, you're eligible as long as you're a 501c3 or a C19 veterans organization.
Got it. Cool.
And also one thing, Jim, I want to add to it. The business should be in operation on February 15, 2020. So if you have an entity that was created after February 15, 2020,
right,
you're not eligible to participate in this.
That's also called bad timing. None of this is funny, but I guess one of the things to ask the group is so we're talking about understanding the benefits of it and the eligibility. I think we've gotten there. How do you apply for it, or are there any wrinkles in the application process? And if people, by the way, have had experience with either applying or trying to apply, and you have any questions about that, you can let us know, and maybe we can address those too.
Yeah. So the application, Jim, the good news is it's only a 2-page application that SBA put out. It's a very straightforward application. If you had to apply for a credit card, it probably takes more time, more pages. But so it's a very straightforward 2-page application that you can complete. The program is open until June 30th. So it opened up on April 3rd, and it is on a first-come, first-served basis. So what I would say is, if you're planning to apply for this, and if you're eligible to apply and you want to do it, call your bank right away, because these loans are, you borrow these monies straight directly from your bank. You don't borrow directly from SBA. It is through your bank. And the good news is actually even non-traditional banks like PayPal, Square, they are actually doing it as well. So they are now eligible lenders under this program that SBA allowed them to participate in this program as well. So the application process, most banks, you can start online. And if you just Google, PPP application, you will even get the original application so you can see how it even looks like. As I said, it's 2-page with additional 2-page instructions. So the first step, again, is contact your bank. And then second, prepare the information you need for that application, which is how do you calculate the loan amount? Generally, the loan amount is 2.5 times your average monthly payroll cost. What does that even mean? And we will talk about that. But you want to be able to provide those documentation to the bank, and we will talk, what you need to provide, and some experience that I've seen with my clients as well. So,
can we stop and talk about the bank issue for a second? Because I think what a lot of people are experiencing, depending on who their bank is, they're either handling this well or not handling it well. You don't absolutely have to go to your merchant bank. I mean, you could go to any lender, I think, but I think what you're suggesting is maybe start with the bank that you work with every day because that you're a customer, et cetera. Is that about right?
That is right, because you already have an existing relationship, which makes life much easier to work through that existing bank. But I have to tell you, I had at least one or two of my clients that came back to me and said, Sibi, I'm working with this bank. We've been banking with them for so many years, but we're just finding it so difficult to process the application. What should I do? I said, you can always go to another bank, and I think you should evaluate both and keep both banks open, and whoever accepts the application first will get it.
Yeah.
So there's nothing wrong with going to a different bank and shopping around, but the only challenge with that is, now you have to establish that relationship. So that may take a little bit of a time. But if you're having so much difficulty with the bank, go to another one, because most banks out there, even credit unions, are eligible to provide these loans.
Great. Well, let's see. I think we had another question about forgiveness. So Douglas asks, what are the limitations on forgiveness? I'm hearing that if we're not able to reach 75% of the funding, we get nothing forgiven. I'm not sure I understand the last part of that question. Douglas, if you're still listening, if you could maybe give me a little more, but why don't we talk about forgiveness in general? And then Douglas, if you could clarify what you mean by that second part, happy to ask Sibi to talk to that as well.
Yeah, forgiveness is the biggest attraction to this program, right? And there is so much discussion right now as to how do we calculate how much is going to be forgiven, what do we need to do. One thing I want to put out right away is SBA came out with the interim rule last week, right before the application process started. And one of the things they made it very clear in there is additional guidance will come out regarding forgiveness. So anything that I'm going to say now can change based on what we have so far. So one of the requirements is you have to spend this money in the next 8 weeks. If you get the loan amounts today, you got to spend it within the next 8 weeks on payroll cost, mortgage interest, rent, and utilities. Those are the 4 biggest items. However, it is because of the high demand, I believe, 25% of the forgiven amount, not more than 25% of the forgiven amount should be non-payroll. If you look at the name itself, it is Paycheck Protection Program, right? The government wants you to keep your employees employed and paid. So if you spend substantial amount that you receive on payroll cost and you keep them employed, you should be able to get that forgiven without any problem, almost 100% of it. But again, we have to wait and see on additional guidance. Couple other things, you have to maintain a certain level of employment. So say like you laid off employees before you put in the application. You have until June 30 to rehire them and make them whole again. So that is one thing you should do if you're getting this loan. Otherwise, you probably won't get forgiven. And if you have cut the compensation on your employees significantly, you want to make them whole again. So those are the 2 measures, and how you spent the money is what will decide how much is forgiven. So there is no rule, if you don't do this, you don't get any. You will get some, but if you want the full amount forgiven, those are what we have right now, pending more guidance from SB.
Yeah, Douglas clarified a little bit. He said, we have the loan approved, but we may not be able to reach 75% on payroll in the 8-week term. So I guess it's just a question of how much gets forgiven in the end.
Yes. So for this particular scenario, you definitely get something forgiven, but we don't know if it's going to be the 100% of the loan.
What do you think, or what do you think is likely, or what are you hearing about a kind of continuation of this program after that period of time? Because I don't know that the situation is going to be substantially different in 8 weeks. So is there any talk about kind of another phase of this?
So there's a lot of discussion on expanding this program and additional funding. So I will not be surprised if there is another 200 billion added to this, and the June 30 due date is expanded to another 2 or 3 months, but nothing concrete as of today. And there is also significant advocacy in the nonprofit sector to include nonprofits over 500 employees in the Paycheck Protection Program, with the second, if there are additional monies added to it. But my personal feeling, that will be very difficult. But if there are additional programs that's going to come out, maybe these nonprofits over 500 employees can be added to that in some sort of a grant type arrangement where they get the money and they don't have to give back. But there's a lot of advocacy going to include nonprofits in anything that's coming out in the future. But as of now, really nothing concrete. But I believe it will be expanded because it's a very attractive program for a lot of small businesses.
Related to what's eligible and what's forgivable, that kind of thing, ZZ asks, besides the employees on regular payrolls, does a foreign employee for a new market paid through wire transfer every month count as a payroll expense and therefore become forgivable in the loan, like things like that?
Yeah, so great question, Jim. Couple of things they made it clear. The business have to be a US-based business, and the employee have to be, the principal residence of the employee have to be US-based.
Okay.
So if you have a foreign employee, you cannot count them and you cannot pay them with this money.
Well, if you do, you can, but it doesn't become forgivable.
Yeah, and yes.
Yeah. Okay, let's see. I think there's actually, I want to just put out a call. We've got a few minutes left, so please, any other questions? This has been very lively. I have one. I think I can, let me see. You know what, Sarah, I can just pick this one up directly because I think it goes right into this. Did I hear Sibi correctly say that it's okay to apply at multiple banks? My bank has me on a waiting list to even apply and told me to look at other options, so I applied through another banks. Can I have multiple completed options out there? This is a tricky, I really think this is one that's catching a lot of people because they think that, it's an orderly process where you go to your bank and they're going to do it and that kind of thing. And I think it's not that straightforward.
Yeah, you cannot have multiple loans, but you can have multiple applications.
Yeah.
So there's nothing wrong with going to, if you're having difficulty with one bank, I say go to another bank. I'm surprised that, the application actually started on April 3rd. We are on April 15th now. I would think most banks have caught up and have resolved their issues. But if they still have issues this many days after, you may want to go to a mainstream bank and see if it actually works out easier for you. Most banks have it online, by the way. You can start the application online. I believe you need a checking account with the bank or something, but you can start with another bank. Yeah, multiple application is fine. Multiple loan is not.
Right. Let's see. We're going to go. Carol asks, what is classified as payroll expenses? Does it include benefits, payroll taxes, payroll service, workers' comp premiums, disability, paid family leave premiums, that kind of thing? Like what all goes into that category?
Excellent question. So there's so much confusion on what gets included in payroll costs to calculate the maximum loan amount. This has been an issue from the beginning. I will tell you what is included. My advice to my clients is include what they said you can. Don't try to include everything, else. So these are the items: your salaries, your wages, your commission or tips, your fringe benefits like your vacation, sick, medical, family, your premiums on your group health insurance, that can get added, your pension and retirement expense, any state or local taxes paid by the employer on the compensation. These are the items you can include. Explicitly, you cannot include employer taxes. Don't include employer. You can include employee portion of the withholding. So there was a lot of confusion on that. So this is what I say, these are the items they specified in the interim rule. So go with it. The best way to look at this is you have to corroborate what you report on the payroll cost with third-party documents like your 941s, your W-2s, your W-3s. So the bank is going to ask you for those information. So if you have a 941 or a W-3, take the gross salary from there and then add your premium on your health insurance and any state and local taxes and your retirement expense, divided by 12, which is your monthly average, times 2.5 is your loan amount.
So workers' comp, disability, and paid family leave are in or out in that overall thing?
So the paid family leave is included. The workers' comp and the disability, I've seen most of my clients excluding it. And it also depends on the bank, by the way. Certain banks have their own worksheet you have to complete to calculate the payroll. And it tells you, for example, one of the bank that I saw is in their spreadsheet, the first line, include the amount of your compensation reported on W-3 in 2019 calendar year. That's it. That's what they want. So you put that amount in there. Then you cannot really add anything else. So it also depends on the bank. I have not seen, most of my clients have not included workers' comp in this calculation.
Yeah. A couple of other, I think we're trying to clean up, like people are now looking for all the categories. Tuition reimbursement for employees, that would or would not count?
No.
No, okay. And of course, I think someone's asking if the compensation to the business owner which is part of payroll, counts as well, presumably, because...
Yeah, if it is a small business like a sole proprietor, and if the owner is getting paid up to 100,000, remember, there's a cap of up to 100,000 for every employee, including the business owner.
Right. Very good. Well, we're at 1:30. I wanted to give Sibi, I wanted to give you ask you something else, just a bigger picture.
Sure.
Nonprofits in particular, what are you seeing among your clients as strategies and just ways of weathering the storm? What else are you seeing out there? I mean, this is a good program, and I hope we've helped clarify for people how they should approach it. But what else are you seeing just as a sort of parting view of the overall situation?
It's a whole variety of different scenarios among my client base. Some of them have enough money in the bank, so this have not impacted them a lot negatively, and some are struggling. So one thing that I've seen across the board is cash flow is so important right now. You need money in the bank. So some of the practical steps you can do, you can defer payments to your vendors. Ask your vendors for a relief. If you have a landlord, see if he can, suspend the rent for a few months.
Yeah.
Ask for mortgage forbearance if you can do that. Most insurance companies are providing discounts. Take advantage of that. Reforecast your budget, because what you budgeted for 2020 is not good anymore, because situations have dramatically changed.
Yeah.
So reforecast your budget. Take advantage of any type of relief that is out there, under the CARES Act, anything else that's going to come down the pike. Talk to your accountants. Communication is so key. And personally, and I'm learning that, I'm talking to my team members way more than I used to talk before, because you don't see them anymore. You're talking to them. So you want to design communication internally and externally as an organization in a way that, that will move you forward and keep you on your mission. And this may be a good time to actually take a look at some of your programs to see, hey, is it a good time to trim some of those programs? If you had a program that was constantly generating loss, this may not be a bad time to do that, Yeah. And the most important that I've seen is, retain your best people. You don't want to let them go, because there is a light at the end of the tunnel. You have to look at post-COVID. So keep your best people and keep your board of directors informed every day. So communication is key.
It's so funny. Last week we had a completely different topic, which was fundraising and donor management, but we ended up on the same point, which is communicate with your board, communicate with your supporters, take the steps you need to take, and get through to the end of the tunnel. So, Sibi, I want to thank you. I want to thank everybody who joined. We had a nice audience join us with lots of good and specific questions, and there's a lot more. Is there someplace you would direct people to for resources with more details on this thing?
Yeah, so Mark's Planet, I don't want to sound like a sales pitch here, but Mark's Planet have a COVID-19 resource center.
I want to do a shout out for Mark's Planet, who do really focus on a lot of things, but they've made a particular focus with the nonprofits, with theater, entertainment, and all these other sectors that all of us play in. So thank you, Sibi, and thanks to Mark Spanath for enabling you to be with us today. I hope this is useful for everybody else. Next week, I want to tell you about what we're doing. Next week, we're going to talk about creating and delivering online events in a high-quality way. We've got two guests, Jeremy Ween and Jay Nash, both of whom are experts, one in theater, one in music, on how to deliver a great online event. So sign up for that. Come to that. That's obviously all the rage these days, and a new field for us all. So join us for that. Meantime, thank you to everybody. Thank you, Sibi. That's all for now.
Thank you, everyone.
All right. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye.